everyone. Welcome to another episode of ARG Presents. I'm your good pal, your good buddy, your bosom chum, Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who's so vile and random, he can't be managed. I give you the Brent.
I've been told that before.
Yeah, look how wild you are.
Woo.
Yeah, there you go. So, if you joined us last week, we spun the wheel, we made the deal, Brent, the exciting deal. And bam, it was a different deal, that's for sure. This week, Brent, we'll be playing.
Wait, you bammed and nothing happened.
Well, I know. I haven't bammed it up yet. But this week we'll be playing Bam Manager games. Now, let me preface this by saying these are non-sport management games.
Correct.
Which changes the whole affair, Brent.
That's about that halves the game right there.
Yeah,
Bam.
at least. And it's funny, I had to ponder this for a while when it first popped up, and I remember saying, I can't think of any of these. Well, I'm an idiot. There are actually a million of these that are out there, and I've even played some over the years, but at the time, it just didn't dawn on me. Is this a area, Brent, that you enjoy, this sort of running a thing games?
I mean, I like... No.
Well, don't hold back, dude.
When you have management games that allow you to do other things too.
Yeah.
Like for example, here's what we have to determine: is SimCity a manager game?
I would say yes. Yes. Yeah.
Is Roller Coaster Tycoon a manager game?
I would also say yes. I would.
Okay.
Because you're running like You're programming in traffic flows and power grids and stuff in SimCity, and then Roller Coaster Tycoon, you're setting up concessions, and so that I'd say yes, absolutely yes. Planning.
If that's the case, then yes, I enjoy management.
Oh, there
games.
you go. Because I know you're a big fan of those those theme park games.
Really love City Skylines. I really love the Roller Coaster Tycoon series, though. Although now it's squarely shifted to the Planet Coaster series. So manager games where you have more to do than just manage.
Yeah.
I have a much more fun time with.
You know, I was trying to think of these sorts of games that I had played, all right? And I came up with a couple that I think sort of fit the bill, all right? So one of which, of course, you mentioned was SimCity, which I've played that one. I've also played Theme Park Tycoon. I guess the Tycoon series would fit Railroad Tycoon, that sort of thing. One I thought of that I guess would qualify would be Dungeon Keeper. That's what I thought of, where you have to build the dungeon up. Did you ever play that one back in the day?
Oh yeah. And I was actually going to pick that one, but I believe that it's been reviewed not by us per se, but the channel at large. Another
one I pondered that I think would have fit this bill would have been any of the Sims games. Those are sort of you're managing a person's life effectively. Did you ever get into the Sims that much?
No. I mean, it was kind of fun to make people and kind of torture them, but the actual gameplay part of it, where you just manage someone's life, man, I do want to manage my life.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Now, what about a game? Now, this was the bane of everyone's existence for a while. What about a game like Farmville? Remember that? That was that Facebook game that everybody played for a while. I mean, you were basically any of the games where you put together a farm. I guess you could put those in the list too, right?
See, now I think we're getting really loose.
But I mean, that counts, right?
No, I don't think it does, because, in my opinion, for it to be a management game, you have to be able to tell someone else what to do.
Right.
And in those farm sim type games, you're doing all the work. You're not telling someone, okay, you have to manage these crops. You have to rotate them. I'll set the crops up. I'll tell you where I want them to go, but you have to actually take care of them. That's not done. So in my opinion, that's not a management game. That's why games like SimCity are just barely on the edge of management games, because at least there you do set budgets. You do decide, where your resources are going, and then the game in generally takes care of those resources. But I think any game where you're doing all the work, that's not a management game. That's a simulation game. I think there's a distinct difference.
I think we've actually covered a couple of simulation games on the show, and a couple that come to mind were the movies. If you'll recall that one, I think that one would count, where you had to make the movies and do.
I think that's more of a management game.
Well, no, I'm saying that would count from. We could have that one would have fit this category. Another one would have been another game we covered on here was Game Dev Tycoon a while back, and I think that would also because you're hiring and firing and you're setting up all the games, all that stuff. So I think that one would.
Well, and once you set up the game, now when you start that, it's not a management game because you're doing everything yourself. But later into the game, you do hire staff. You give the staff things to do. So that I'm completely on board with. I do think that is a management game.
There you go. So we actually have looked at a few of these things. Where do you see God games flying into this? Could we have put Populous in here?
Let's see.
Because you've got Goofs working for you.
Populous runs into the same problem as SimCity type games, where you're such the driving force. But with that said, I would say that Populous is less of a management game and SimCity is more of a God game. But I could see interswitching the categories.
There you go. By the way, we covered Populous 2 just a few weeks ago on Amigos, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed it because I always hated Populous, and it is kind of fun to. It's neat to run an area, make people do what you want. That's the allure of being the manager, right? Is to is to have ultimate power. So that's always a good time. Plus, see whatever you're working on grow. So it's always nice.
Oh yeah. That other thing.
see whatever you're working on succeed. So with all that in mind, Brent, we were tasked with looking for a couple games to try out and we both, I think, wanted to go outside the box a little bit on this one because yes, you could have picked as we discussed, we could have picked SimCity or something. And I had a bunch of people send me ideas on this. There are a lot of good ideas. But I went ahead and picked one. This was suggested to me by our good friend L. Curtis Boyle. And I went ahead and selected one that I thought it sounded interesting, and also I never heard of it, so I thought I'd give it a shot. And so I'll lead the dance this week, if I may, Brent. And the game I chose was BAM! It's Franchise on the TRS-80 color computer. This is a game that will work on any of the color computers with 64K of memory and a joystick. Now, I will tell people up front, if they decide to go play Franchise on their color computer, you must have a Black Beauty or analog stick. The way the menus in this are set up, you can't use the analog to digital converter with the Atari stick. It won't work. It also does not support the keyboard. You must have an analog stick. So, forewarned. I think that was a poor choice.
Yeah.
By the way,
this would have been an easy keyboard game.
Yeah, there's no reason why you don't use the keyboard in this, but by God, a joystick is required. This game was published in '85, and it was published by an outfit called Computerware. Okay, pretty generic name. And the author was a fellow named Steve Hartford. He wrote this himself and put it out. So, what is Franchise? It's actually a pretty simple game, but it's got some depth to it. So in Franchise, you are running a restaurant, right? Pure and simple. And
a fast food joint.
That's right, a fast food restaurant. Well, I suppose if you put enough money in the food, it could be a super, super upper crust fast food facility if you took the notion.
But it's always fast food.
So, and you don't get to pick the name, any of that stuff. You are running Frank's. This is Frank's Restaurant. That's what it's called. That's the franchise. So, what do you do in Frank's? Well, you've been given the task, and it's funny because I only know this because of just what I could read, because it's not mentioned really in the game. You've got 3 years to develop and own 15 restaurants. Now, they could be any combination of restaurants that you own or restaurants that you franchise, right? There's a 3-year time limit on this. When you first start the game, it just takes you to a screen that has a picture of the restaurant and then some options and some statistics. And you can go through these things and tweak your restaurants in terms of their budgets. So what can you do? You can determine the quality of the food you sell. Right? You go to a screen with like a picture of a farm, and you can and by that I mean you spend extra money to get better food. So at the beginning
and more food.
That's right. At the beginning of the game, you've got the rock bottomest food. That's as low as you can go. You can also go and tweak the various payouts for your workers. Now you've got two separate sections of payout for your hour to hour like scrubs, and then the management you can set their salary. In the beginning of the game, by the way, I thought it was interesting. This game starts off in 1986, and the workers are making $3.35 an hour. Now I would not be surprised if that was the minimum wage. That sounds about right back in the day. And even the management are only making like $3.85. So they're really getting screwed, But I'm telling you, I worked back in those days, and when that doesn't seem like a lot of money, it wasn't. It was definitely not a lot of money. And the minimum wage right here is just kind of hung around forever. On this, you can right the wrongs, and you can pay your people whatever you want. But I can tell you right now, you probably don't want to go too much higher.
Yeah.
You also can set up your advertising, and you can advertise. And again, you're just adjusting your budget. To the amount of money you have budgeted for advertising to up or down to see what you want to put into it. And each of these screens has a little different picture. There's when you go when you go to the farm, that's where you get your food. If you go to a little TV set with a little screen on it that shows your restaurant's ads, you'll also go to a screen if you want. You can look at what your competitors are doing. And this is kind of a cute screen where it shows the competitors' logos. Like it's almost like you're looking over a bunch of their signs or over a value of their restaurants, and it says what their name are, and then it'll also say what they're spending their money on. How much money is Mr. Burger is spending on advertising? You can tell, and you can sort of try to gauge what you're going to do by what they're doing. If you want, you don't have to, but if you want to do that, you can. You can also go in and try to sell franchises of your restaurant. This is sort of the key element to this game. This is where you make the big money, and also where you build up those restaurants. The selling price of your franchise is $20,000, so you can sell that. You could also go to a screen that will individually tell you what all your restaurants are making and how much how much profit or loss they're making. And on that screen, you have the ability to either start your own franchise that you own, or to open or close close other franchises that are perhaps not performing that well. So, and that's pretty much that part of the game. It's not that difficult. There's a calendar in the office, and every time you finish up and you say continue, the calendar will go up a week, and you'll move on. The game does have an interesting twist. Every 4 weeks, you become a worker in the restaurant. Now this, I have to say, when this came up, I was pretty surprised, Brent. I'm sure you were too. There's an overhead view of a restaurant, and people will come in and order. It's always 3 customers, and they always have these long orders. Well, not always. The funny thing is, your restaurant is they're pretty narrow on their offerings. You can sell hot dogs, hamburgers, fries, and soda. That's it. That's everything they sell at the restaurant. So, and on this screen, the patron will come in. They'll be like, I need 3 hamburgers, 4 orders of fries, and 2 drinks and a hot dog. And so you've got to go over to these separate areas and get their food and go up and rig them up. It's not complicated. It's just like almost stick figure-y. But the funny thing is, and I learned this as I played this, because I went through this thing for a long time. I played almost 2 years. If you've skimped on your help, like you're not paying them that much, what happens is you've got a little guy that will come by and they restock all your stuff. They come around, and so what can happen is if you're not doing too good on paying these guys, they don't come around as much. So you can get to the point where the food's not there, and so. Did it ever happen to you, Brent, where they were waiting for like pop or something? There were no pops, and there's a time limit. You run out of time.
I skimped on my food budget so much that I produced no food. So the people came to the restaurant. I was just like, I got nothing, man.
Why did you go so cheap on your food, you cheapskate?
Here's the thing. The very first time I played the game, right? I loaded up. I sort of know what I'm getting into because I watched the video. But I had no idea what choices actually meant what. So I start up. The first thing I do is sell my franchise. Game over. That was
What the
it.
heck were you thinking?
I was like, sell a franchise. Surely it won't let me do this. It was like, all right, you sold your franchise. Now you're bankrupt. I was like, oh, crap.
Well done. You had to kick the tires on this game, didn't you? That's good. Well, but the restaurant serving screen is odd. I will say that. It's an odd one.
It's a good breakup.
It is.
I liked it.
So that is the game. I mean, there's not. It's not like there any other. What you do basically, you're trying to strike a balance between costs and earnings. And you've got to keep an eye on your other restaurants. It wasn't difficult to sell that first franchise. It is not easy to keep selling them. Because you have to be earning quite well. I was profitable, but I mean, and the thing is, you can be unprofitable real quick. If you decide, hey, I'm going to put $2,000 in advertising, you can, and your net profit after all expenses is $2,100. Well, you're down to $100. You're boned. You've got to be real careful, and you got to monitor what you've got and coming in and going out. Occasionally, you could get in trouble. All the time. In fact, the number one thing that would happen is that the FDA would come in, or whoever the health inspectors would shut your restaurant down because the food was so bad. And
poor food quality.
So they'll do one of two things that I saw, and you may have seen other stuff. They'll either fine you, or they'll straight up shut your restaurant down. And which that happened. Both those things happened to me, and I thought I was doing pretty good with the food. I mean, heck, you sound like a real tyrant with your food. I was trying to make quality food. But the problem is food's a big expenditure, and so, you can't go crazy with it. I mean, you could have the ultimate restaurant, but it'd be like the Homer Simpson where he was the ultimate garbage man for a day, because your restaurant would just tank, and that would be the end of it. Did you use the screen with your competitors as a guide at all, or did you just ignore that?
I did. I knew I could never live up to the standards of McBurger, but I felt confident I could overtake the taco place.
Yeah.
So whatever they were advertising, I would advertise $100 more. Now, did that actually do anything? No, but it made me feel good.
Were you profitable when you played this? Could you go for a while?
I went for a while, but once I started my downward spiral, that was it. I couldn't recover.
I should mention there are also different levels of play in this. You can play as beginner, medium, or expert. I played as beginner.
I went medium. I had middle of the road.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was doing well. I was making money, and then something happened, and I started downward turning, and I could not recover. So I'm guessing I went too fast in the beginning and kind of screwed myself that way.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the game. Unfortunately, and this is so bad. The controls in this game are just the dirt worst.
Well,
they are absolutely horrible. And that takes what should be a fun and fairly relaxing experience and makes the game just more of a chore. And that's so unfortunate.
Well,
did you have the similar issues with the controls?
Listen, when I tried to play this, because I used the real Coco here, as I want to do. So when I first loaded it up, the colors was wrong, so I had to reboot it with the colors F1 pushed down.
Yeah.
Then I booted it up, and I had my joystick in the wrong port. And then I booted it up, and I put the joystick in the wrong port, but it didn't. I couldn't use the Atari joystick. So then I booted it up with the Black Beauty. Okay. Now the Black Beauties, and I'll put one up here on Still Store here. Let me zoom in on me. These things, if you've ever used a Coco joystick, this is what they look like right here. If you're watching at home, they're as plain Jane as you could possibly be, and you'll notice that the joystick part of this doesn't bounce back. They're straight up analog, and they got the one button, and so this game was made for a joystick like this, because the way you go down through the menus is you scroll down just by kind of moving it just a little bit downward. If you've got these joysticks, you're okay. It's okay. But
I don't believe you.
Well, no, I mean,
because
it's here's the problem. There are areas of this. I mean, it's just like a lot of games. You could hit the wrong button, but I mean, because They overcomplicated the controls because you have to be precise when you move up and down the line. So I'm not glorifying them. I'm saying it's not the best idea. Plus, on one screen, you can continue, you can start a new game, or you can quit, and they're all 3 in a row. So you've got to be real careful about what you're hitting.
And that's every week.
Yeah.
Every week that screen pops up as part of the gameplay. Now, my problem was simple things like adjusting salaries,
yes,
or ad revenue or whatever.
Difficult, yes.
You would overshoot your number and then have to go back and you'd overshoot it the other way. And it just got to the point where I was just like, all right, it's close enough.
Yeah.
And that probably was at least a contributor to my downfall. And it's unfortunate because if this was keyboard, it would have been absolutely fine.
Yeah. I would recommend, this is one you're going to want to emulate, and you're going to want to rig up an analog controller as your arrow keys. I know it's a pain in the butt, but you can do it. And then play it that way, because this, you're right. I mean, listen, you're dead on. The controls on this they hold this game back. And who'd have thunk it? A game like this with control issues? What the? Nonsensical. Totally nonsensical.
But ironically, that seems to be our theme for this week, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, you ain't kidding there. So overall, though, this was a pleasant surprise. Like I said, I'd not heard of this one, and I enjoyed it for what it was. But what it was some weird, crazy, an odd game with bad controls.
Yeah, I can't recommend this solely for the control issue, but if you like management games, simple management games, because this is simple.
I agree.
That has a fun little action part. Well, action in huge quotes.
Yeah.
And you're willing to rig up better controls, which I never got to work, by the way. But I just can't recommend it as is.
Did you?
And it's unfortunate because the game is actually kind of fun.
Yeah. It's a unique game for the Coco. Did you, when you were playing in a restaurant level, did you ever have any trouble running out of time?
Oh, yeah, because the controls are so bad.
Yeah. I thought that actually was the best part, controlling part of the whole game. I also have to note, because I thought about this to myself, that your restaurant has a long, narrow hallway, single-file hallway that goes in and out the door. This is a fire hazard, I assure you. Yeah. I would recommend putting at least two hallways in. I don't know where this thing goes. It's almost like they built this burger joint in a speakeasy. It's like
also, you've got tables that no one ever uses. No one ever sets at them. No one ever eats in the restaurant.
Yeah.
They want their food and they're getting out.
They take it to go.
It's apparently this is set during the pandemic. That's forward thinking by the developer.
I do like the fact that you have that calendar in the back, so every turn is like a week. And if you get far enough into it, like for example, I had one date fall on October 31st, and the game wished me a happy Halloween. So that puts a thought into
it. Wished, yeah. A happy Valentine's Day as well.
Yeah, so that's it's a little more attention than you would expect from a game like this.
No, there's a ton of detail in this.
Yeah.
And the taco place and the other burger chain are, real life restaurants.
Yeah.
With the please don't sue me twist.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Everything is so well thought out. And then the controls just are brutal.
Yeah.
They're brutal.
I will say,
it's unfortunate.
If you can get past the controls and you're like me and you're not really into these sorts of games, this is a good game because it's not mega deep, but there's enough depth there to feel like you're doing something. That's the way I look at it. So there you go. That's franchise for the Coco. I didn't get any reviews on this. We didn't get any Discord on it. And you wouldn't expect to see any reviews because most of the time on these games, they might just have a little workup in the magazine, but they didn't really do reviews on them. So there you go. So that was my entry, Brentster. What did you have on offer this week?
I went a far more complicated just no idea what I was doing. And I went to the Super Nintendo and picked up AeroBiz. And it's very important that we do not believe that this is Aerobiz Supersonic, which was the sequel to Aerobiz. I went all the way back to the beginning, and the first game of the series, Aerobiz. Holy moly. This is both deep and shallow at the same time. It's amazing. This actually came out on multiple platforms.
Really?
The X68000, the Genesis, the Super Nintendo, The PC-98 and the FM Towns, Aaron, if you ever want to go back and load it up on there.
No, never. I never want to do that.
This came out, depending on what part of the world you're in. Japan came out mostly in 92, and then North America got a little bit of 93 action. Aerobiz is you are the CEO of a up-and-coming airport industry, and you start the game out, you name your company, and this is a multiplayer game. You always have to play against 3 other airlines, and those 3 other airlines can actually be controlled by other people. So you can do this in a round robin, take your turn, pass the controller to another player, and have up to 4 players. Very, very rare in management games are they multiplayer, but this one absolutely is. And while I think it would be very dull and boring when it's not your turn,
Yeah.
I can absolutely see a group of people sitting around just chatting, kind of playing this in the background. I think it would be great for
I
that.
think this would be
So
better. I think this would be better to play like what those, the ones where you take your turn and you email the guy it's his turn. That
Yes.
would be a lot better because these turns could go on forever. That's why I'd be like, man, you're bored stupid.
Yeah, turns can be very long or very short. I mean, sometimes you have very little to do and you just click next. So how much control does it give you over your airplane business? Tons. It allows you, first you name your company, and then you choose what city you want to start in. And there are a fair amount of cities around the world, places in Russia, places in Japan, places all over the globe, all of the major continents you can start an airport in.
You also pick
New
your
York,
era.
Huh?
Your era, too. Like what era?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are 2 scenarios to play through. I was going to get to that a little bit later, but I'll go ahead and mention it now. There are 2 scenarios to play through. You can start in 1963 and play that way, or you can start in 1983 and play that way, and it plays for 30 years. 32 years, I guess, if you want to be technical. And during that time, the airplanes, evolve. Obviously, you're not flying around in super jumbo jets back in the 60s. So you have kind of an evolution as well. So you pick your starting city, and this is your hub. This is where your main Air Force is located. And it shows you how many planes you have currently. And from there, you already have access to some other routes. And what that means is you can tell a plane to go from the city you're starting in to a city somewhere else on the globe. Usually it is either on the same continent or just over the ocean. And you can have your people go out and talk to other airports and have them negotiate to open up places for you to land your planes there. And that is the goal of the game. You want to get ports in at least 22 cities, stay profitable, and have a X amount of passengers depending on what difficulty level you are playing at. So as that opens up a lot of replayability because you can start in a different city, which opens up all different routes that you start with and that kind of thing. But the game goes a lot farther than that because it also allows you to build hotels and shuttle services in the places where you have airports. And what that does is when you're flying to these places and then the people stay at your hotels and you can advertise your hotels. Everything that branches in this game gets a little bit deeper than this step before. What rounds all this off to be this incredible game is world events happen in the game. The Olympics take place.
Yeah.
The Cold War ends. All these different real life events that would affect air travel happen. And depending on what era you start in will depend on what era you have to fight with. For an example, you can make the game really hard on yourself, start in 1963, and then start in Russia. Well, Russia will only let you buy Russian planes. So when you go to the marketplace, you can't go to the Boeings of the world or something like that. You have to buy Russian-made aircraft. depth like that it's incredible how the replayability of this game, because it all depends on where you start and where you branch out to is what you do. You can also buy stock in other companies, not the four major brands that you're fighting against, but little companies, little like just one route or two route companies. And if you own 51% of them, you actually take them over, and they integrate into your mass conglomerate of planes. Aaron, were you able to figure all this out, or did you just kind of fumble around like an idiot for several hours?
Well, both. I did both. So I started I played one scenario, and I stuck with one country every time. I always played out of Australia, because I thought that would be the easiest place to start.
That's a horrible idea.
Well, no, listen, I didn't think it was great for winning the game, but to learn.
That's good, because you
And so the one thing I noticed is that when you're in the game and you're talking to your management, you've got your sub geek that will tell you what's going on, and the sub geeks are different depending on where. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Every little city has their own little icon. It has one of their whatever their thing is. Like you have a Eiffel Tower or the Statue of Liberty, which is neat.
A little background.
Right. I like the little touches like that. Every area you have different planes, like you said. That's which is cool. And so when you start off, the guy says, "Listen," he goes, "We're starting a new airline here. If we go into the red, we're boned. You can never go into the red." And so right away you're like, "Uh-oh, that don't sound too good." And so you start off by the first thing I did, man, was just I looked over the menus. I was like, okay, we got to have some routes. So the first thing I did was start building my routes. So where can I go? Well, I could go to Hong Kong. I could go to Japan. Because I could get there, but then some places you have to negotiate for a slot. So then you've got so you go to a boardroom where and everyone there will say, okay, here's what we suggest you do. It's like to help you. And then you've got a staff of geeks. You're like, okay, Geek 1, you need to go negotiate with Hawaii. It's the first point. I was like, okay, I can make some money going to Hawaii. And in Geek 2, I need you to negotiate with LA, because I want to build a route from Australia to Hawaii to LA, so I could get into continental America. And they go in, and they could take, like I said, up to 6 months to negotiate, but eventually you work out a deal, you have to pay, of course. Don't think you don't pay. And then you can fly. Then you have to, not only are you picking where you're going to go and what you're going to fly, but you got to pick how many planes you're going to dedicate to the route. You have to pick how many times you take that route in a week, and you also have to pick how much the tickets are for the route.
Yep.
You've got to do advertising, and you pick the route you're going to what are you going to advertise? You're going to advertise your airline, the routes you've got. You've got different choices of what you can advertise. This game is deep, brother. I can tell you that right now. I mean, it's shallowly deep. I mean, it's
yeah.
This is it's funny. It's sort of similar to franchise in 50 times more intricate, but you're on this main screen. You sort of do your business. It's the same thing, advertising. It's very similar in a lot of ways to franchise. But something else I like is they'll have little cutscenes. So like when you make a new route, you'll see your plane. It'll be like big fanfare, and your plane will zoom into that country, and it'll be like, we're going to Thailand or whatever. And the planes
it will land like a helicopter.
Yeah, the planes. Did they use the Super Nintendo that special technique? I couldn't tell if they were using it or not. The
Mode 7. Yeah,
but
they were.
It was the least attractive use of Mode 7 to get these things done. Something else you got to get used to in this game is I hope you like music, because there's a theme, and that theme is relentless. Now, it will get broken up for the fanfare or some other stuff occasionally, but I mean that did get old. I will say that. I like the idea that world events, for example, they had the Olympics in Vancouver, the second year I was running the airline. So you've got to get your dudes. You've got to get some action. It's Vancouver. Well, you can't just fly to Vancouver from Australia. I can tell you, the Olympics had no bearing on my path, because there was no way I could make that happen. But still, it's neat that those world events happen. That makes it more fun. So I like that. I like after the round, it tells you who's winning the game. And if you're winning, it shows you this screen of cheerleaders. I don't know, for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I thought that was good. And so, but your staff is real happy with you, and they're also, you can tell their emotions. Like if they're happy, they look pretty happy. Like the guy was this bald dude, and he was usually pretty serious, but occasionally he'd be real happy. And then when you did something bad, he'd furrow his brow like, no, bad, Yeah. So there was a lot going on. I did pretty good for a while, but this one, it just, bring yourself a packed lunch, because this thing is pretty slow to get through. These turns take forever, man.
Well, I mean, yes, they are slow, but I feel like I was accomplishing things most of the time.
Well, you can't skip through the menus. You can't skip through the dialogue. You have to watch it, and it just, I hate that. I hate the fact that they won't let you skip through that.
I never thought any menu or dialogue or graphical, the Mode 7 where it's taking that flat plane and rotating the background around. I never thought those were too long.
No, those are okay, but I'm just talking about like when your guy comes up and says something you've seen a million times. Okay, this is where you need to make a route. It's like you
can speed up the dialogue.
I want to hit start. I want the dialogue to just appear. I don't know what it is about the Super Nintendo and having the dialogue come out like that. I hate it.
No, but you can. Yeah, you.
It wouldn't work for me. I hit start, and I want it just to appear. I don't want it to be slightly faster. I thought whipping through the menus was slow.
What a horrible complaint.
Listen, whipping through the menus is slow. I'm just calling it like it is.
So let's talk about what was really wrong with the game, because that wasn't it.
No, that's not it.
Again, this is a game that demands mouse control on a system, at least for the Super Nintendo, that does not have mouse control. And not only does it not have mouse control, but it doesn't have analog control. So you are digitally moving your mouse around the screen for a large portion of the game, trying usually in vain to land on the city or option that you want to hit. And that's unfortunate, because I'm sure on the the X86,000 or one of the other computer-based systems, that wouldn't have been a problem, and I wouldn't have to be angry about it. But for where I played it on, which was the Super NES, it was abysmal, because the mouse, the pointer does not snap at all to where you're trying to go. I think a much better solution would have been just hit up, down, left, right, and it bounces to the next place.
Yes.
And maybe hold a button that would allow you to free move it. But as is, again, control issues in a game like this, in my opinion, is inexcusable.
Yeah.
The meat of the game, getting your air, because you buy planes, you buy hotels, you buy property, you get into all these other airports, you feel like you're expanding, you're making meaningful choices, because you don't want a plane that can fly 8,000 miles to go on a 1,000-mile route. You're just wasting fuel. All those kind of things you learn as you go, and it feels like you're making meaningful decisions. But when you're using this little mouse pointer to do so much of this work, it really cuts down on the game, the fun of the game, the meat of the game. Now, all that said, I really enjoyed this. I never played the full 32 years. I would normally go bankrupt before then, because I would almost always make some horrible decision, which usually involved buying planes, and I would buy too many of the big planes and then wouldn't have the routes to put them into, and I would start losing money, so I'd start upping ticket prices, and then it would all fall apart.
Yeah, this is not a game where you just hop in and you're like, suddenly you're great. I mean, you're going to do a lot of trial and error.
You're going to learn. But that's good. I like that about a game.
Yeah.
I like feeling like I'm making progress and learning. So when I found out that the sequel to this, and I did not play it, but I want to touch on it, Aerobiz Supersonic apparently is such a monumental leap for the series that no one ever talks about this game. They always talk about Supersonic. So I will eventually go and take a look at Supersonic, because it appears to fix a lot of the problems that I have with this game. Aaron, did you look at Supersonic at all, or did you even know it existed?
No, I did know it existed. I didn't look at it. I never look at these things. I try not to look at them, because I'm always going to look at them somewhere down the line. Getting back to what you're talking about the controls. Again, it is funny. Here we are, 2 games that are completely non-action packed that have control problems. And you're right. I didn't think the controls were that bad until you tried to go on that global map, and then they became a much bigger pain in the butt. You're right. You would flip to the wrong area. It didn't work well. And the menus, I will say, this on a PC, like with drop-down menus, would be ideal. Sort of like a Civilization, like that. I mean, this game would flourish. I mean, they've almost got them. In fact, effectively, but the Super Nintendo, not really the medium for a game like this. And the sad thing is, this is one of those games that you never knew you wanted. But once you start playing it, you're like, hey, this is kind of neat because you're making routes. The way it's structured, I will say, they do help you early on to try to get your footing. And to see where you need your routes to go. But a lot of it's sort of self-explanatory. I enjoyed it. Stuff like setting the fares and stuff. Like, they give you an idea what you should do, and you tweak them, try to make some money. But I really did think that was kind of fun. I like that. In the same way I would enjoy, like, making my own train routes and stuff. So I thought that this game, I was like, when you picked it, I'm like, oh my God. And I'm not going to lie, when I first loaded it up and saw that main menu, and it's all picture-based, I'm like, oh, geez, this is going to suck. But I will say they do a good job. It all becomes pretty obvious pretty quick, and then you can get in there and have some fun. I don't like stuff where it gets too complicated.
I have something to tell you.
Yeah.
They actually remade this game for the Sony PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, and Windows PC.
Oh, okay.
It's a game called Air Management 96.
Yeah.
However,
that name sucks.
It is Japanese only.
Oh, don't.
So
lead me on there.
One other thing I want to mention about this game before we start to wrap it up here. This has the longest unskippable intro of copyright notifications I have ever seen in a game.
Yeah, it does.
42 seconds of unskippable copyright notifications. Holy cow. I know they have to do it. I know that, that's just the way it is, but it sucked.
A lot of it's like, these planes aren't real, and it would list all the different numbers.
No, it was like, no, these planes, because all the planes are real.
I mean, but a lot of it it would be like they would individually list every plane, and they'd individually list every city. It's like, I guess they were worried to death to get sued.
All the planes, Boeing, and it has all the planes that Boeing made.
Yeah.
And then it'd go to the next company and have all the planes that company made. And it was like 7 screens of it or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I
timed it. It was over 40 seconds from turning the machine on to being able to hit start. That's crazy. Just for the curious out there, this is very obtainable on the old eBay auction sites. Loose carts will go as low as $25, and you can get the full package for around $100, depending on what kind of system you're trying to buy it for. Consoles, is all I ever saw up. So very obtainable. If you want to check this out, if this sounds interesting to you in the least, I do recommend it. Yes, the controls are a little fiddly, but it is something you can overcome. Do understand that when you're adjusting things like prices, you can hold down a button, and instead of going dollar by dollar, it goes, $25 at a time, which makes that a lot better.
Man.
I would recommend this as a management game. I had a lot of fun with my time with it.
I will say
very replayable.
A lot of our listeners aren't the biggest fans of the Super Nintendo, all right, and which is fine. But if you're not a big Super Nintendo fan, this might be a game that you might enjoy, because it's totally a different sort of game that you would expect to find on the SNES. And me, I don't like to play games like this all that much, but I actually had a good time with the time I spent with this. It's just an intriguing concept, and it's presented in a way that it's real fresh. Like, it's almost like a wide-eyed child. Like, look, it's air flight. We're going for it. We're starting our own corporation. Yay! That kind of thing. which is, I don't think it's really like that, but that's the way I envision corporations starting. Everybody, we can make some money and have some fun, that sort of thing.
Also, if I actually had as much money as these people start with,
yeah,
I would never open an airline. I would just go and retire.
Yeah,
so you start with millions upon millions of dollars.
Did this support any sort of SNES mouse peripheral?
No, it does not have mouse support.
Well, there you go. That's it. That's the end of that chapter, then, ain't it? Well, hey, as we bid fond-adieu to our management games, please put your seats in their upright position as we spin the wheel, Brent. The wheel. Here we go.
Wait, I'm still trying to get to my upright position.
No.
Oh, all right.
No,
fine.
Brent. In your case, take your seatbelt off.
I'm reclining again. Then.
Take your seatbelt off, Brent, and dance around the fuselage. So, Brent, this week we have added. It's a throwback from our first Thanksgiving that we never had a full show on. It's modern 8-bit, Brent. This was a piece suggested by our good pal Pack Billy a couple years ago. And then we've also added as our retro rewind piece this week the Odyssey 2, because you can't ever have enough Odyssey 2 in your life. That's the way I look at it. All right, are you ready, the Brent?
I am. How about you spin us up some chat choice?
Yes, master. I will attempt to do that. Here we go. That's the official noise of spinning the wheel, and we have the winner is
that ain't chat choice.
Animal Protagonist. This was a piece suggested by our good pal Jason Warnes. He's a hoser, but he's a good guy. Animal Protagonist, Brent. What do you make of that one?
Wow, that's pretty straightforward, isn't
it? Can you name off the top of your head some games that would fit this bill?
Bugs Bunny.
Okay, there you go.
Any of the Bugs Bunny games.
So Animal Protagonist next week.
Star Fox.
All right, so any game that has an animal running the show on this one. Yep, Sonic. We've got plenty to choose from, Brent. Now, do you want to put any of your official Brent limitations on this one? He's pondering.
I'm trying to think. No, I think this category will stand on its own.
There you go. The chat are just throwing games out here. Sonic, Goose Games, Super Frog, Pingo, Moose Games, Bubsy. There's tons. James Pond. There's a glorious plethora of games to choose from. Brent, do you have any announcements you want to make before we move on down the line here, since we're closing this sucker down?
No.
I actually have some.
Happy Mother's Day
to
all the moms out there.
Yes.
You guys keep the world spinning. We are simply getting in your way.
You think there's a lot of moms that listen to the show, Brent?
I know there's at least one.
Oh, yeah?
So.
Oh, there you go. Well, I hope it's not ours. Hey,
no.
I would like to... I've got a couple things I want to talk about real quick, the Brent.
Happy Mother's Day to my lovely wife, by the way.
Yes, very good. And my mom and Tree and everyone else. Have a glorious Mother's Day. If you are listening to this this week, which is the week of May the 9th, we are just a few days away, 5 short days away from Amigos episode 300, Brent. As an Amigo yourself, a fill-in Amigo, drop-in Amigo, you must be excited for the 300th episode of the Amigos Everything Amiga podcast. This will be as usual, recording live, Brent, on Friday, this coming Friday, in fact, at 5 o'clock p.m. It should be a happening. That is Friday, May 14th. The boat will be here live, in studio live. We haven't been together for a show for over a year, Brent, but by God, we're putting it down. We're going to show a bunch of crazy, wacky clips. We're going to have some trivia. We're going to have some fun. I think Boat's got some stuff to give away, and we're going to take a wacky jaunt down memory lane to see all the stupid crap we did. I have found footage that's never been seen before, Brent, including the infamous 100th episode party that we had to refilm, and you were at that one, I might add. So I've broke that out. I've also got the infamous me and Boat film an apology to the Discord video that's never been seen in public. I've got a huge amalgamation of Boat songs to play for everyone. So this is going to be something you're probably never going to see again.
Well, I'm out.
There you go. We even did some live. We did some live on-site shooting this week. So this should be a lot of fun. We would love it if you would join us. Something else I want to mention that, and just a little tip of the iceberg here, but July is only a few months away, Brent. You know what July brings with it? It brings the Amigathon, and we're gonna be back this year. Amigathon 2021. It should be a happening, big time happening this year, Brent. We've got some exciting announcements, and I'm telling you, I'm real excited about this one. I think this is going to be a big time deal this year. I'm looking forward to it. So if you feel so inclined, join us for Amigos 300 and stay tuned for some exclusive information about the Amigathon 2021. And with that, Brett, we'll take it to the house. Good job, my friend. We'll be back next week with some animal protagonists. And until then, go manage something.
Thanks for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Hello to our YouTube subscribers and our Twitch followers. A special thank you to Duncan Styles for our vector graphics and Bartbit for an amazing closing theme. Want to help keep ARG spinning for as little as $1 a month? You can do so in our new Patreon at patreon.com/ARG Presents. Just like these fine folks. Graham WFetke, Rolo, Olaf Hope, Anthony Jarvis, Terry Howard, Gary Heather, John Schaller, The Slow Morris, Frodo NL, Steve Rasmussen, Bernhard Lucas, Chris Folds, Mitsuyama, Jason Warnes, Rob Black O'Hara, Andy Craig, Dave Velociraptor, Retro Algae, Hermsky, Rauschie, John Dykeman, Jerry Dennington, Z9K9, and Mr. B. Don't want to explain another credit card bill? That's okay too. You can help us out by leaving us a positive review on Spotify or Apple iTunes. Have an idea for a wheel piece? Email it to us at argpresents@mail.com. We film live every Sunday, 10 a.m. EDT on Twitch. Hope to see you there.